why Western medicine falls short of addressing and treating the root causes of sexual issues, and why healing methods need to address the physical, emotional, and spiritual aspects of sexual dysfunction in order to resolve it. Brooke also demystifies ED in 3 easy steps. So without further ado, here is today's guest, Brooke Hazen.
Next, we'll get to, how we can, what the hope is, how we can transmute this into Tao, Tantra, Karetsa practices and bonding behaviors versus mating behaviors. What are the tools that we can employ?
So the dopamine crash happens because they're just so like you said, they're, used to like masturbating to porn and just getting to that ejaculate state. So when they're having sex with a woman, it's that climax that they're trying to reach so fast. Instead of like bonding with the woman and actually being in the act of being with the woman, it's like, I know I've had partners in the past where it's like, they weren't partners for long, where it's just like, yeah, you're starting to finally get aroused and then they're done. Or like, oh, can you come? Like, well, no, you're not doing anything for me. It's like, I've had, people that are just, it's all about them and just nothing for the woman.
Yeah. Well, Gary Wilson, he passed away last year. He's a pioneer. He's the foundation of the anti-porn movement, the porn awareness movement. He wrote Your Brain on Porn. He showed the neurology behind pornography addiction. Marnia, his wife, who I'm friends with, who wrote the review for my book, she actually looked at the neurology of relationships. And, she talks about how the dopamine crash that happens for men, I believe, is, the science shows, but I believe it's much more profound for men than women. But the dopamine crash happens because they release their semen. And at that point, as I said, at that very point of semen release, this profound change happens on a neurological, mental, physical level, sexual level. There's a shutdown that happens for men because they're releasing their vital essence too often. And, so some men talk about, well, how can we, it's kind of an attachment. Like, how can we release our semen some of the time? Do we have to never? Can we ever release our semen again? It's like, yeah, you can. Sure, you can do whatever you want. It's a free country, right? Obviously, what's happening on an epidemic level, but there's no reason to. Health-wise, it's extremely healthy on all levels, and that's what I actually. And before I get into it, but I want to again talk about. I think there's a difference with women. I believe there's not that same effect. They're not releasing massive amounts of essential nutrients and growth factors and hormones going through this major dopamine crash that's happening. It's just a different effect on this one area. I think the other areas of our bodies are so exactly alike. It's just this one area is a profound difference. And so I actually believe that orgasm for women can be incredibly powerful. The onus is really on men. Men are not, they have a relational dysfunction taking place on every level, neurologically, spiritually, mentally, relationally. That's where we need to look. And when men can bring that to the relationship, then women's orgasms can deepen that connection. That's my belief. I differ a bit with Marnie on that one element. I love her to death, but I think it's important that we look at what, keep looking at things. I do think I do recommend women look at the effect that, keep an eye on their neurology, see if there's any satiety and distancing that happens. But also, just, if anything, be aware of how orgasms can deepen, when and where they can deepen the relationship. What's their role? How does that affect you? We should always be aware of how our behaviors affect us. But I don't think it has anything to the same effect as it has for men. But, the one thing I learned, and this is getting into the next section about Tao, Tantra, Karetsa, mating and bonding behaviors. When I went through my process of quitting pornography and semen release through the no fap movement, which is no PMO, no pornography, masturbation, orgasm for 90 days. When I got to the 90-day level, along with almost all men that go through this, I was looking at, I don't want to go back. I don't want to release my semen and go through that crash anymore. It's really tiring. I love what I've become, and I don't want to jeopardize that, because I actually did an experiment at the 90-day mark and noticed it's when you quit the addiction that you notice that how powerful it's gripped you. And it gripped me for decades without me even being aware that I was having dopamine perpetual crashes and mood imbalance and fatigue for decades. And I was unaware of it until I actually let go. I let go of it. And so what I wanted to do was figure out, how can I keep this going, but deepen relationship in the process? And that's where I came into my research on Tao, Tantra, and Karetsa, and discovered that's exactly what they're doing. They've been biohacking relationships for millennia. And it wasn't coincidence. This is all tried and true, behavioral experimentation that they have come to realize over millennia that in the West, we're so close to. Men, I don't know what they're afraid of. They don't realize what they're missing out on. They just don't, because they're so brainwashed by the peer pressure from the corporations, from our cultural peer pressure, from friends, family. They think it's macho to do these behaviors, when in the East, it's not macho. It's not macho at all. It's actually the difference between success and not having success.
Well,
and they're
Sting
willing to put
did
everything
that.
into it.
Sting was a practicer of Tantra, probably 30 years ago, when I had no idea what this Tantra was. And
we're not taught about this. We need to be taught the basics. These are basic foundational teachings. This is what we should be taught as kids. That we're going to talk about how they biohacked. What they did in the East for millennia, and they're doing now, is it's important to understand first the definition of mating and bonding behaviors. I talked about mating behavior, what that means, how poisonous it is and doesn't hold a place. And it's really a dopamine driven behavior, especially the way men are hyper focused behaving on it right now, but through pornography and their semen release. But their bonding behaviors, we've evolved two major behavioral pathways over hundreds of thousands of years in our mammalian brain. And it's mating behavior and bonding behavior. So the mating behavior I just identified, the bonding behaviors have evolved around raising babies, family connections, community, and they're oxytocin laden. So these behaviors are that feel-good hormone oxytocin that brings us closer together. And what the East has done that's so ingenious is they've figured out a way to hack this intense mating drive, which is impossible to get rid of entirely, and supplant it with bonding behaviors, which satisfy the mating drive, but build long-term, sustainable, connective, deepening relationships that can last indefinitely, which is what we truly want. We want to have sex, and we also want to have long-term relationships. We want to have deepening relationships. And that's exactly what the bonding behaviors bring. And so bonding behaviors include deep eye gazing, listening, communicating, sensual play, slow building foreplay, and honoring and respecting the heart and soul of that being that you are in partnership with, as opposed to objectifying sexualized body parts with the heart and soul removed from the transaction, which is what men are doing now with pornography. And then most importantly, again, is semen retention is absolutely essential for men to practice with our bonding behaviors. And so I feel through what I've learned, the research, that it's absolutely essential. And I say this in my book, it's absolutely essential when we're renewing an existing relationship or starting a new relationship that men refrain from pornography. And we strongly request this in a relationship, that we make it a condition that men work on quitting pornography, practicing some form of semen retention, and bonding behaviors, because it's ultimately going to destroy the relationship every relationship. It doesn't matter. You see it all the time. You see the best matched partners. You see the perfect relationship couple. And you just think they should be together forever. But what Marnia looked at was, why is that not happening? Why are we cycling in and out of these relationships? Well, it's because we don't have the right tools. Men are not practicing the right tools. Women are making all the right decisions. I mean, 26% of women, maybe not, but the other women are making all the right decisions that are oxytocin laden, that are full of bonding behaviors. And that's absolutely the way I believe God wants us to behave. I do believe there are certain behaviors that God wants us to embody and to recognize that we've been given a blueprint for how our sexual behavioral choices can massively impact our lives. We just need to make these sexual behavioral changes, and then we watch our life completely transform, like happened for me, where my sexual, overall physical potency, my relational potency, my mental acuity, and my emotional balance grew to levels I never could have imagined when I was in the haze of this pornographic behavioral choices that I was making.
So you're saying, when you say semen retention and bonding, when you get into a new relationship or you're in a relationship, to not always go into the sexual act and releasing semen, right? It's bonding.
What we do
tantra.
is we see it more as a dance. So it's whatever unfolds. We need to stop having a goal. It's
right,
goalless, goalless intimacy. This is where we need to look at it as intimacy. We are connecting with another soul. What men are doing massively right now is, on a massive level, is objectifying and sexualizing body parts. There's no heart and soul. It's just physical. It's only physical. And that's in line with Western medicine, reductive viewpoint, isolation, compartmentalization viewpoint. It's exactly in line with Western ways of thinking. And so we really need to transform and incorporate these Eastern traditions into the West, because right now, on every level, on the most foundational parts of our lives, with our diet, with our healthcare system, which is a sick care system, with our sexual choices, our relationships, we are seeing just massive dysfunction on every level. We're seeing disease, dysfunction, imbalance, addiction. It's not a good place. And our culture is going to not be undermined by some outside force that's going to come in and conquer us. It's going to erode from within, from our own foundational behavioral choices that we're taught and brainwashed. And that's why we need to start a new behavioral movement for men that women are trying to teach men about, but that these powerful forces that are really negative are trying to keep us from.
And it's getting worse. So this kind of movement is so needed for men. I mean, I have a lot of female friends that have been single for a long, long time, myself included. And it's going to get worse because they're introducing all new forms of sex and porn or virtual, where it's like a virtual world where they put on this little, what is it, a helmet or eye mask, and they can see like it's virtual, like your pornographic dream is right in front of you, and they're creating robots that look like humans with human flesh. And so we really need this, because there's not, I see so many amazing women that are still single because they're intuiting that the men aren't really there and they're not present. And in what you were talking about, as far as not having an end goal in mind, like when you get naked in front of someone, with somebody, I want to bare my soul. I want to be naked. I want them to see my naked soul and not just a body. And I can always tell, I've always been able to tell when someone's there with me, when someone is very present and they're taking me in instead of just going through the sexual act.
Yeah, I mean, women really have two choices right now. Either they go along with this toxic mating drive that's been super hardwired in by pornography addiction, and they actually sort of mimic these behaviors in the relationship, which is ultimately a disaster, because that's going to result in men searching for a novel mate. It's just at the base of it is just satiety and distancing in these mating behaviors. Or women can learn the tools I just mentioned, what's actually happening neurologically with men through their behavioral choices. And if they want to get in a relationship with a man or even a woman who is experiencing, porn-induced either erectile dysfunction or arousal dysfunction. That's the difference. For women, it's porn-induced arousal dysfunction. They're experiencing the same neurological effects, except that it's just much more toxic for men. And that's, I believe, why men are experiencing this on much higher levels than women, is because of this semen release aspect and the dopamine pain that they go through, these cycles that encourage further relief from the dopamine cycles by this continuing. Like if you drink, you're hungover, you drink more, right? Well, you release semen more to pornography to escape the pain and discomfort from it, rather than just quitting it and letting go, which is a big step. So women can realize what's happening and then make clear, defined boundaries that are absolutely necessary to follow for men, if it's a man or a woman, that pornography use, mating behaviors, and semen release have no place in the relationship and will not be allowed in the relationship. And they either start working towards it and with the goal that they will do this, or maybe you leave the relationship or don't get involved in one and come back if they are made that change, or you just move on. And it's just unfortunately a sad reality of what's happening right now, that women, this pornography epidemic has triggered a relationship epidemic. That's chapter 3 in my book is the pornography epidemic. Chapter 4 is the relationship epidemic. And that's not coincidence. It's triggered a relationship epidemic. So we can talk about where men have gone if you want, but they are not available. Men are completely gone.
Yeah, I find that if a woman puts her boundaries or has her standards, a lot of men are just going to the next easy person, or where they don't have
That's
to.
That's what they do.
Yep.
Then that's what they do.
I'm finding that with the swiping apps, I feel since those came out, like I don't really even have a dating life right now. Because I have I have zero tolerance for this, like lack of effort, mediocrity, like not even like the chivalry. Like it's starting even there before it even gets to the bedroom. So you're not, treating me how I want to be treated. We're not even going to we're far away from that.
Well, again, what I said before, men are already in relationship. If they're watching pornography and releasing semen to pornography, they are in relationship with literally dozens of other women. Their brain, as I said, is fully occupied neurologically, mentally, physically, emotionally, relationally. They are fully occupied with many different novel mates, and they're constantly finding new ones. They're constantly escalating. So you are not going to get availability from a porn addict, which unfortunately is most men walking around right now. This is we need to wake up. Most men are actually doing this right now. Most men, this is taking the world by storm. And that's why God had me write this book. And now I've found myself on podcasts, because this is a major threat to the balance, the health, the positivity, the love, the awakened heart of our planet, of our nation, of our culture.
Yes, this is big. And
you
really
can see what happens when men actually simply, and that's the hope, simply quit. Let go of that pornography and that semen release. That's all they have to do. And you can see what happens. You see how I've transformed. You see how hundreds of thousands of men, just like me, have found themselves. Their heart has awoken, and it's awakened. And they're their light force, all the attributes that God wants us to embody comes back. It's that easy. That's how we transform it. But we have to get this knowledge out there so that we can transform it. If we're still in the dark and corporations want us to keep consuming pornography and ED drugs, then we're never going to get out of it.
So where do we find men like you? Like that you said there's hundreds of thousands. Can we have a database so we can maybe select some awakened men? Yeah, find some awakened men.
Maybe hang out at the graduation ceremonies for the no-faps. No, yeah. I'm just kidding. I mean, honestly, yes, I think the number one probably interview question for a novel mate for starting a new relationship would be, are you, finding out if this person really is, they're not going to tell you, but you can suspect that most men are watching pornography and releasing their semen to pornography, and they are in relationship. They don't know it. This is subconscious, unconscious behavior, but they're actually fully occupied. They are unable to relate and to connect because they are addicts. They are basically experiencing a major dopamine addiction, no different than cocaine, morphine, alcoholism. It's the same thing. Dopamine, these dopamine addictions, are all the same. That's why we honor our dopamine, our neurology. We cultivate our chi sexual energy. These are gifts that we've been given that are so powerful, the most powerful biohacks. That's why I talk about that over and over, is because we're not honoring it like they do in the East. In the East, this is gold. They would pay millions of dollars to learn these techniques because they knew that this would transform their lives on every level, that they would get enormous success, not just financially, but, in all areas of their life.
Well, they do talk about this, and, athletes, I think before they're supposed to do a boxing match, or they're not supposed to have sex or masturbate or do any of that. And it's the same, like I've done ayahuasca journeys, and that's one of the things that you're not supposed to do for 2 weeks either. You're not supposed to release that sexual energy because you're supposed to take it into ceremony.
Yeah, we need to have a profound cultural shift and realize this isn't just a one and done thing. This is really foundational behavioral changes that we need to make as a culture in order to turn this around. But I see, even in the no-fap movement, men grapple with this addiction. They see the benefits, they know the benefits, they've heard about the benefits, and they are aware of how damaging it is, but they are unable to get over they keep relapsing. Eventually they get there, but they keep relapsing because of how powerful this addiction is. And so what I recommend for men is to make an absolute connection that the enormous, depression, lack of confidence, identity loss that you experience with erectile dysfunction from porn-induced erectile dysfunction is what's causing that. That's the cause of it. And when you equate the cause with what I experienced was a complete terror of the loss of one of the most profound aspects of my life, which is sexual union, then you actually make the connection. And when you make that connection, you can, for myself, I saw that as enormous drive for me to finally have a solution, we have solutions. It's not a lifetime prescription of pharmaceutical ED drugs, which is what Western medicine is actually doing right now. They're actually prescribing these young men who are 20 years old for 80-year-long prescription with no possibility of regaining that naturally from within. That's why I wrote this book. That's why I'm out here talking, because I want men to have the tools to know that they don't have to live that way. This is cruelty on a massive scale.
You're seeing it happen to like 20-year-olds or as young as, I guess they're growing 16. Up with porn. Yeah.
My coach, Noah Church, I think he was 16. I don't have the exact date, but yes, virgins who are 16, 17, 18, when you're ready to have that first sexual experience in your life, imagine the terror of not being able to have that and thinking that you may never have that your entire life, unless, of course, you take Cialis or Viagra, which is not going to help at all.
Lifetime customers.
But I don't think women know what men suffer through when they take those drugs. As I mentioned before, this causes massive, debilitating fatigue and side effects that induce blood flow. It's actually incredibly dangerous. This is malpractice, because when someone does not have blood flow problems and they're prescribing blood flow, this can cause a sudden drop in blood pressure, and a serious event can happen. I've actually gone through symptoms like that, where I've had a sudden drop in blood pressure, and I was out of it for 3 days. This is the definition of malpractice. Yet, because we empower Western medicine so much, we don't hold them accountable when they are doing this, when they are making people ill and they're killing people so that they can continue to reap their billions of dollars.
Isn't it this country that's the only country that is allowed to advertise pharmaceutical products? Is it just on the radio and TV? I don't think the other countries
they go after everything. They go after, all the natural healing modalities, the IVs. They go after anyone that's naturopathic or anyone like me talking about any solutions. Yet they're able to, because they have that backing of the FDA and the insurance companies, these massive interwoven conglomerates, they're able to talk about whatever they want, even though it's a lie. There's no cure happening. There's no solutions. There's no root source, getting to the root source at all.
Well, they're even changing
a money-making machine.
Well, they're even changing definitions. Like, you can't go to Wikipedia. They're changing definitions of things. And it all started, I heard, back in like about 100 years ago, with like the Rockefellers, and then the modern medicine, and then all the holistic medicine we used a lot of that. Like, they're like you said, squashing it. Recently, NAC there was another, I forgot the real word for that, but there's been products that they're like, they're trying to squash or not have us have anymore because they actually work, Well,
we act like Western medicine and pharmaceutical industry have been around forever, when it's actually very recent in its origins. That actually, the only growth in learning taking place right now is in the natural field, in the natural medical field, as well as our own research. I encourage people, empower people to do their own research, just as I did, because nobody was there to help me. With ED, there's really nothing there. And I found that out the hard way. And I went through all the suffering, emotionally, physically, on every level. And before I finally realized that I need to look out for myself. And men, you need to look out for yourselves. And women, you need to look out for yourselves. And we all need to understand what's actually happening, get to the root source, the root cause, the actual meaning of what's taking place right in front of our eyes, and then make informed decisions with that. We can't make a decision when we're being given a bunch of myths and misconceptions.
Yeah. And I hope a lot of people really do realize that after, like, the biggest psychological assault we've had in the last 2 years. So I think it's really woken people up to, the medical industry. It's bad. And it's just like the mixed messaging, and like, I mean, we've seen it with that one therapeutic that they forced on people like for 2 years. Like, the mixed messaging it keeps changing in a bizarro world, like, oh, climate change and people are dropping dead, like the extreme gaslighting. So hopefully people will really see that they don't have our best interests at heart.
It's really
find
easy.
Another way.
It's just, all we have to do is let go of all this. Just let go. Let go of the pornography, the semen release. Let go of our blood. Let go of eating every meal. Practice intermittent fasting. Let go. Let go and gain your courage and your discipline, and push yourself. We've lost the art of pushing ourselves when our brain is incredibly plastic and our body is incredibly resilient. God didn't give us teacups. God gave us these beautiful body and neurology and brain that is capable of enormous transformation. Don't worry about pushing yourself. Let go of the fears. And because what I like to ask people is, what is it that's blocking you? And I want to ask you and your listeners right now, what is it that's blocking you from realizing the ideal version of yourself, from becoming that ideal version? Because we all have an ideal version of ourselves, right? Well, what is it that's actually blocking you from realizing that? I mean, what is it? There is something that is some either peer pressure, misconceptions, or something within you that just kind of gives up and says, well, I'm going to rationalize this away. I'm going to go back to the way I've been. Well, what's stopping you? I want to encourage everyone that we have unlimited potential of our mind. And if we just let go of our fears, you can do like I did and just completely be courageous and start anew. Strip yourself bare in front of God of everything, your fears, your misconceptions, and gain that courage that God can give you, fill your heart with, to become the being that God truly wants you to be.
I love it. It's like surrender. I talk about it a lot. Surrendering, let go, and allow, the divine intelligence to move through you. And we are such powerful, amazing beings, light beings. And we're using such a small percentage of our brains. We talk a lot about heart and brain coherence too. And it's like literally how, that kind of energy expands outwards. So yeah, there's so much that we don't really understand about ourselves. And I love how you just surrendered and allowed God, to move through you and have faith in him.
I think women practice this regularly. Men need to actually learn this, and there's women too that, of course, I make these generalizations, but you do see a difference. You see women making these wise decisions that are in alignment with God, with the kind of behaviors that bring light into our life, love into our life. That's what God is. It's light and love and healing. God is the ultimate holistic healer. The power behind all natural healing is really that light force within us that heals us when we cut ourselves, that the true source of healing within us.
Yeah, it's really pretty amazing. Like, cut yourself in your body. It's just amazing to look down like, oh my gosh, my body just heals. It knows what to do. It's the divine intelligence. When we're not throwing that into like total mishap and disarray with all these weird drugs entering our body and screwing up our God-given system. So,
well, those drugs are really meant to be a last emergency resort. And the first line of defense really is supposed to be getting to the core of the problem, making lifestyle changes. All these massive problems are from 4 massive elephants in the room that we're ignoring, which is pornography, semen release, an animal-based diet, heavy metals, and other types of free radicals, as well as arteriosclerosis, and not looking at the way we can cure arteriosclerosis through these natural IV medication, natural solutions through IV, intravenous. Those are all right there. We're ignoring the 10-ton elephants in the room and talking. They want us to talk about all these, it's kind of like a Houdini act, like gaslighting, like, hey, look over there, look at that, look at that, look at that. No, we know now, I identify clearly what these are. The pornography epidemic, the semen release behavior epidemic of mating behaviors, the source of free radicals that are causing so much of the major heart disease problems we're seeing today, as well as ED that is blood flow driven. And then, how we can resolve that through the IV medication, the IV natural IVs that don't have any of the dangers associated with surgeries and fatalities, that come from surgeries and pharmaceuticals that those are not resolving anything. Those are not actually getting to the root source. They're just, we're not supposed to be taking these medications for a lifetime. And that's what people are doing. They think they're supposed to take this for a lifetime. Well, that's great. The pharmaceutical industry loves that. It enriches them, and they could care less about you. Honestly, they could care less with the side effects you experience. If you experience ED side effects for the rest of your life, do you think they care? No, they don't care. But I'll tell you, I will never experience the kind of Frankenstein lab rat experimentation I had to go through that they were offering for ED. It's not a solution. It causes immense suffering and pain, and it continues to perpetuate this erectile dysfunction scarlet letter that is hanging over and plaguing men today. It's cruelty on the largest scale.
I'd say, and I mean, this is really the first time I'm really hearing about this, and it totally makes sense. So, how can people find you, or how can people like men get involved in this movement, or start going towards learning more about this?
Yeah. Well, what I recommend is, men should get my book and highlight the kind of solutions that I offer. They should get a coach that's navigated these waterways before, like I did, and join the NoFap community, which is hundreds of thousands of men and women that have decided to quit the pornography addiction and the semen release, or the, basically pornography addiction, and to make that deep connection to, you can resolve this. This is directly from simply letting go of two behaviors, letting go of pornography, letting go of semen release, and then watch your life transform.
Mm-hmm. So that's the best way for people to get a hold of you, is through your book. Do you have any programs, or are you going to start offering coaching, or what's lighting you up? What's next for you?
Well, I mean, I'm just doing the podcast. That was the next step after I released my book. But I'm actually made my book available for free on my YouTube channel as an audiobook with all the chapter visuals, and it doesn't have the scientific studies that my paperback has, but I do encourage people to go and listen to my book and the podcast on my channel, Brooke Hazen, You Are Not Broken. And then you can also go to my website, brookehazen.com. It's BROOKEHAZEN.com, and you can also get a link there to the YouTube, trailers, the book, the audiobook, etc. You can also, there's a lot of resources. You can click onto the NoFap, Remojo. My book is on Remojo also. Which is an app that helps men and women get off pornography addiction, that Noah is involved with, my coach. And just Your Brain on Porn. I really encourage to go to the website, Your Brain on Porn by Gary Wilson. The work he did was a pioneer, was monumental. And then, I have links on my website to, if you want to get the paperback, you can get that through the link to Amazon through my website. And as far as where I go from here, right now, I'm just focused on bringing the word out like I'm doing today with you. And that occupies pretty much all my time when I'm not organically farming too. So I'm actually love the two worlds I'm in. I'm sort of in this beautiful journey of waking people up to this profound enlightenment of the power of our sexual behavioral choices. And then I also am nurturing these olives and apples through my farm, Gold Ridge Organic Farms. But as far as the future, just honestly, focused on the podcast right now and getting through these and doing the best job I can to do what God, the promise I made to God, which was to write a book. And then now I'm doing this podcast. So I'm just fulfilling the promise I made to God, as well as trying to help alleviate the suffering of millions of men and women right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love everything that you're doing and that you're offering to help transform relationships, transform men. Women are, how can women support this? I know that they're the least amount in pornography. There's 26%. Are they addicted to it, or they just watch pornography, the 26% of women?
They're addicted. They can experience porn-induced arousal dysfunction too. They have as I mentioned, a difference with the semen release aspect and the dopamine crash that men experience. But I'm depending on calling on women to help, because this is a war on men's neurology taking place on a massive level. And it's not that women have to help. It's just that I'm hoping they can. because
to support and get the
this
word
is so
out, or how
serious.
can we most
just with this
support this?
podcast, encouraging men and women to look at what I'm talking about, to be aware of what's actually happening, and to spread the knowledge of the tools that we have to simply turn this around, to dispel the brainwashing that's happening right now, that's keeping us locked in this dysfunction right now, on a massive level, with sexually, physically, relationally, mentally, emotionally. Women are beautiful beings. Men are struggling enormously right now. They've been misled and caught up. Some of it's beyond what they intended. They didn't intend for this to happen. Excuse me. But it's taken them by storm.
So women can help support by getting the word out in the movement, and in relationship. Like, a lot of women like, oh, yeah, you watch this porn. They watch porn. Just absolutely do not tolerate that at all.
Absolutely.
Like, no go.
That's going to help men. Okay. If your partner is got an addiction to cocaine and morphine or alcohol, are you going to be like, oh, no big deal, it's okay? No, you're going to be like, either you quit this or I'm leaving. And honestly, that's what it takes, because most men, all the men that are on NoFap are there because they've hit rock bottom, because they're experiencing ED. Unfortunately, as long as they can get away with vibrant sexual functions of pornography and real women, they're going to probably try that. But, men are going to need to hit rock bottom, and they're going to need to be given an ultimatum for them to actually be able to change in a relationship. If they're on their own, I don't know what they're going to do. Hopefully they come into contact with someone like me with these teachings, but a lot of men are lost, are goners, until this becomes a prominent knowledge in our culture, which I'm hoping it will. I'm hoping that we can all spread this, and the 100th monkey will finally make everyone aware on a profound level, to where now, following the herd, we follow the herd of men and women that have incredibly transformed their lives, regained their power, their connection to their true selves.
What a lot of people don't realize is, it's a little harmless porn, but it's harmful. It's like, there's no such thing as harmless porn. So
it's like saying, oh, it's a little bit of harmless cocaine.
Right, exactly. And that's a good way to look at it.
Escalating addiction. This is not a de-escalating addiction. It's not recreational. This is a drug. This is a neurological drug. It's a dopamine hit that happens every time they release their semen to pornography. They are getting a major dopamine hit, and to get the same hit the next time, they're forced to escalate to more graphic material, oftentimes all the time, really, beyond surpassing what they ever could have imagined that they would partake in.
And also, like, the porn industry is horrible because a lot of them aren't consensual. There's human trafficking that happens, and they're forced into that.
Yes, that's right. That's a whole nother element.
Yeah. And of course, the dark energy that comes off of it. So yeah, that's definitely in my books. When I do meet someone, that's an eliminator.
Again, this is feeding the toxic mating behavior part of our brain for men. And this is going to poison, undermine, and destroy the relationship. It's really black and white. There's really either the relationship's eventually going to dissolve, or they are going to change their behaviors, quit pornography, practice some form of semen retention. I recommend completely practicing semen retention, but maybe they do it sometimes if they can't handle it. And then also reading the book Cupid's Poisoned Arrow, practicing bonding behaviors, realizing the neurology of relationships and mating behaviors versus bonding behaviors, practicing Tao, Tantra, or Karetsa, or all of them. Integrating these healing practices, behavioral choices into our relationships. We need to realize that these sexual behavioral choices that men are making on a global level right now are dramatically impacting and undermining the relationships. It's interconnected. This is not separate. It's connected through neurology, through energy. That's how it's connected. That's the connection. That's what we're not getting, because reductionist medicine only sees physical. They only see physical body and their little, chemistry, experiments they're doing in the laboratory through pharmaceuticals and surgeries to try and cut it out or take it out with a simple, easy pill that, that we all want to just take a pill, right? It's a lot harder to let go to God and to gain courage. That takes courage. That takes strength. That takes discipline. And that's what we need to cultivate.
Absolutely. And it's too bad this stuff should be taught in school. There's so many things that should be taught as kids, and they're just not teaching them.
Well, it's a weird thing. I'm a creative person. I've never quite fit in, my whole life. And now I found why I'm here. I'm able to bring, see things from afar, and I'm able to go to the root source. And I'm probably the only person right now that's providing these solutions for all forms of ED, as well as connecting it to healthy relationships and physical health. And emotional and mental health. I'm bringing sex into all areas of our life, even God.
Well, I really hope my audience, you're listening, you need to definitely look up Brooke's book and the work and this movement, so that NoFap, what does that stand for, or what are the
it's kind of embarrassing. It's actually no masturbation. So it's that, I heard it's the noise it makes when you're masturbating. Okay. So I don't like to talk about what that means usually, because it's kind of immature, but I will say that the NoFap movement is not immature. It's incredibly profound, and it's a valuable tool we have right now for young men and women of all ages to get the support they need. It's important, like in any addiction, to have like-minded people with the same goals you have, to seeing a vision and realizing that vision together. And that's exactly what it is. It's kind of like AA, but with even more support, that we have either one-on-one or group, meetings. And you can, I also encourage, there's plenty of men like me that have gone through this transformation that are coaches that their job, their career now is to wake men up and women up and to guide them through what I went through when I talked with Noah. When I first started meeting with him, when I was going through this NoFap journey, I was a mess. I was scared. I was skeptical. I was terrified that it wasn't going to work. I was dealing with trauma. That's what's so cruel about what Western medicine pharmaceutical industry is playing us with, is that it's creating massive trauma. And it took me a lot of time to get over the trauma. I don't even know if I'm fully over it, but I'm definitely like, I don't know, 99% over it. But, it's incredibly traumatic what men especially go through, because their identity, according to men, it's such a critical part of our sort of confidence that we're really expected to get this massive arousal where the entire lingam becomes engorged and hard, and that's totally natural and should happen into old age. There's a ton of myths. We can enhance it through the organic solutions I provide in the book, but really you're going to get that through semen retention and through building healthy neurology, healthy dopamine levels, because we must have that to get an erection and for women to get an arousal. So we're going to naturally get that through those two practices. And then we can enhance it further and prevent possible organic ED into old age, and enhance our sexual function into old age through the organic healing modalities I have in my book, through the different IVs, through hormone through, testosterone, through Kegel exercises, through physical fitness, through, sit-ups and working out and weights, and especially diet change, plant-based diet that's intelligent, plant-based, capsules intact, whole, and then intermittent fasting. And we have to watch all forms of free radicals, like plastic bottled water is linked now with arteriosclerosis. It's a free radical. Plastic microparticles are free radicals. They cause arteriosclerosis. So we have to watch those too. These little things I have in my book. It's basically, I cover every area that in all the research I've done over years, I cover every area of maximizing our sexual, physical, and relational health, neurologically, energetically, and physically.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Well, because of you, you're going to be helping so many men, and in turn helping us women. And women.
When women can benefit from these healing
Mm-hmm.
modalities too, I encourage
Mm-hmm.
women to remember, don't forget, I wrote this for you too.
Mm-hmm.
This is an incredibly balanced book, and I want all the women to realize the enormous benefits of the healing modalities I present in the
Mm-hmm.
book on all aspects, the neurological, the energetic, as well as the organic healing
Mm-hmm.
modalities, the physical health aspect, because we all share these same body parts, except for the lingam and the semen release. That's the only real difference. But all the rest is exactly the same.
Well, by healing our men, you're helping us women. By our men,
Relationally,
really,
women are suffering.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're
immensely.
suffering.
Yeah, I'm
relationship.
really sorry that that's happening. It's I definitely feel it. I am well aware of it, and that's why I wrote a chapter on it. It's very hurtful to me to see what's happening. It's beyond hurtful. It's actually immensely painful for me to see what women are going through and what they're missing, and a critical part of what they're searching out in life is not being met, and the devastation that's being wrought by corporate power, how it affects all areas of our life, men and women, all areas of our life. It's massive what's happening, and we just have to stand up and fight against this, and we do that by just giving ourselves our own power, never giving that away. Always stand up for what is important to you, support those that are doing this, and strip yourself of these corporate controls and powers and myths and misconceptions and the fears, the blocks, addictions, the negative habits. Strip ourselves of all that, and that's all we can do.
And it sounds like you're wrapping up my last question. I always ask, I mean, it's what you said in a nutshell. It's like, I always ask, what does it mean to live with an awakened heart? And it sounded like you just gave how you awaken your heart to all these, these outside conditions, and like what you can do to empower and enable yourself.
This is how men are going to be able to open their hearts again and be able to communicate again, because they're unable to communicate right now because of these addictions, these behaviors, these sexual behavioral choices are what's really causing this. And so they're unable to connect, to be patient, to communicate, to listen, to be fully present and fully embodied in the relationship. Or to look at how to even change those behaviors that's where women can help, is that if they're unable to make these changes because they're unaware of it, then they have to be aware of it and maybe not understand it at first. But for me, it took about a month for me to actually make the connections. And the real reason I did, and so many do, as I said before, is because I was facing erectile dysfunction, porn-induced neurological based, arousal displacement dysfunction. Basically, my arousal was displaced. I needed to rewire and rebuild, which takes about 6 months to 2 years. Usually a year, you start seeing increasing benefits. But I needed to rewire myself to a real connected partner, because my brain had shifted, my neural pathways had shifted my arousal network to virtual reality, to this imagery that was fantasies that's I thought was real. I consciously, my brain thought it was real, but it wasn't. It was just this mirage. It's like chasing a mirage. And that's what men are chasing right now. Like any addiction, they're chasing a mirage, a dopamine addiction. They're really chasing the hit. They're chasing the dopamine hit. And in the form of this, but what they're getting is they're not getting connection. They're not getting sexual satisfaction. They're getting a dopamine addiction. They're getting chasing the hit perpetually.
Well, thank you very much for having the courage to look within yourself and to heal the right way and to bring all this information and how this is really the pandemic that's happening. It's like a war. I kept hearing this is a war on, I don't know if you ever heard Jimmy Levy's This Is War. It feels like there's a war on us, and you're bringing this to the forefront, and we need to heal this next generation, or we need to heal who's here and avoid this for the next generation coming in. So
we're looking at we're staring in the face of a possible collapse of the human mind and heart if we don't address this.
Yeah. And as we had talked about, it's by design. So, we need to look towards ourselves and others like yourself in order to transform humanity.
Yes.
In a nutshell.
That's why I appreciate that you've awakened your heart and having this podcast for all other people that have awakened their heart and that want to awaken their heart, because without your podcast, the message won't get out there.
Well, it's going to get out there. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your insights, heartfelt stories, and your wisdom. And I can't wait till people can hear this and create their own path towards like chi and vitalization and relationships and harmony. And I want that. I want that for everybody that's listening. So
me too.
Thank you.
Thank you.